Hello everyone, welcome to As Real As I Can Be. My name is Kanyesa and I am the author of the book you're looking at over there, Traveling While Black and Lesbian. It's a memoir that is filled with stories of my childhood leading up to when I started traveling, why, and the experiences I had in different countries. Now, I did videos on the most racist countries I've ever been to, the safest countries I've ever been to, and some people asked me to do one on the most homophobic countries I've ever been to. This is a quick disclaimer that I wanna put out here, and that is, these are the countries that I've been to. And I don't claim to have been to like loads and loads of countries, but this is a combination of the places that I've been to, and this is the experiences that I have had. These are the feelings that I have had in those countries. And so yeah, that's my disclaimer. A lot of people get really angry. A lot of people get really angry, and a lot of people get really defensive. Now, I'm too grown to be bullied on the internet. Like, it's not something I've been through a lot in my life. The last thing that will shake my feathers is people being mean on the internet. So if you watch my videos and your initial response is to be mean, bless you, go to therapy. Something is wrong. Okay, so let's get into it. The top 10 most homophobic countries that I have ever been to. Okay, so I want us to first talk about, I don't know, I'm gonna throw out a word, hopefully everybody knows it. It's called intersectionalities. We have to understand that countries are different in the way that they view, perceive, act on certain things, you know, and the reason I bring that up is because someone commented, but you said you had fun, and that's the truth. I had fun. I'm one of those travelers who have learned to let shit go. And I'm doing these videos, to promote my book, but to also inform queer travelers of color. Travel, but be safe, be aware. Like all travelers, female travelers, don't go get drunk alone in Cape Town, South Africa. Chances are you're gonna get hurt. So I want you to travel. I'm sharing this with you because I want you to travel, but because I want you to be safe also, okay? Capiche? So let's get into it. At number 1, I put South Africa because, you guys, I know it was number 1. It was like up there with racism. It was way down there with safety. And now it's like up there with homophobia. The thing with South Africa is that even though we have the one of the most progressive constitutions in the world, same-sex marriage was legalized in we were one of the first countries, right? But the issue is, even though the constitution is so progressive and we have rights in South Africa, we can get married, we can adopt, we can buy houses together, the main issue is that the people are not educated on sexuality. And we are a country that is very traditional, but that is also really religious. And so in South Africa, there has been a lot of murders of lesbians. We've had cases of correctional rape. And the thing is, I read, I think about a year ago, that only 14% of those cases actually end up with the perpetrators being persecuted by the state. So you have these crimes against the LGBTQ community, and the people who commit them against us are not getting punished for them. That's basically what that says. And I remember I came out to my grandmother a few months ago, about last year, and I brought my partner home, and my grandmother was processing what I had just told her at 85 years old, and out of nowhere one day she looked at me, she looks at Indy, and she goes, they burn you guys here. And I said, what? She was like, nothing. I remember a few months ago there was a story of a lesbian couple in Cape Town who was raped burnt in their car on her way to a funeral. And I was like, oh shit, she must have seen that in the news, and she was genuinely scared. So things like that happen in South Africa. It is just the violence that happens against LGBTQ bodies is intense, and I dare say it is in most African countries as well. So yeah, I'm still okay, I'm still vibing. Number 2, we have Belize. I think Belize, because I remember arriving in Belize City and getting on a local bus to this town where my ex and I were staying at, and we had this cute little Airbnb, and driving past, there was a small church with big red letters that said, homosexuality is a sin. And that was one of the first things that I saw in Belize. And I was like, well, church, you know how religious people feel about us. Some religious people, of course. But that did give me like a little bit of that's a little scary. That was very bold of them. And then my host, she invited her niece to come and hang out. She was younger, way cooler, and she was going to show us around. And it finally came out that we were a couple. And when we actually went to Belize City, where she was showing us around, giving us like a nice tour of the city, taking us to the best spots to eat, she was like, okay, so just tell people you're sisters, and just tell people or that you're friends, because Belize can be very violent towards gay people. And so that's why it was number 2, because when you have a local person being like, listen, I'm okay with y'all, but I also want you to be safe, so let's just let's tone down the gay a little bit, so we turned it way down. So put a number 2 there. The next country, I need to confess to you guys that I had done this video and I didn't put it on there because I don't know, there's something very triggering when you call Americans out. But I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna put it on there. So at number 3, I put America. America is a complicated country. And I've been in and out of the United States for about 5 to 6 years now, where I'd come visit for a few months and I'd go live where I was living. This is the first time where I'm here for a whole year, been here for a year now, and I am really beginning to see how complex this country is, Anyway, so it's at number 3 because one of the most violent 3 messages that we have a couple's Instagram, and we just share our love, and we talk to people about what we're doing with each other, not that, but like where we're traveling, what we're doing. And since being we live in Australia, nothing happened, but since being in America, we have gotten the most disgusting, the most violent, the most vile of text messages from complete strangers here. People telling us what they would do to us because we were gay. And it is also that country where people feel the need to really just tell you how much they don't like homosexuals, as if it has something to do with them. And I put it up there because even though we live in Seattle and it is this very liberal city, there's rainbows in the streets, this is where I have actually been confronted via text, which made me scared, because you're like, I don't know if this person knows where I live. And so I put it up there, and I know that in America, the stories of the LGBTQI community there's so much violence, trans women die at an alarming rate, get killed, not die, there's a difference. They get killed at an alarming rate here in America. So yes, I put it at number 3. Number 4, I put Malaysia. Just a quick disclaimer, I've lived in a lot of these countries. I lived in Malaysia for a year. I was an English teacher at a university over there. And in Malaysia, it's a Muslim country, and I went in there, I went to Malaysia a year after I had been in South Korea, and that year I had come out of the closet. I texted my cousins, I texted my family, I was like, I'm gay. And when I went to Malaysia, I felt like I needed to be back in the closet because I had these preconceived ideas of what being gay in a Muslim country could cost you. And I remember feeling like, well, I have to be in the closet here. And it was affirmed because one of my colleagues, who's now one of my best friends, he's gay. And when we came out to each other, he was like, can you tell I'm gay? I was like, baby, of course I can tell you're gay. And he was like, do you think other people can tell? I was like, not really, but I can tell. And we were both sharing stories of growing up in this religious country, or families, sorry, where we had to really be closeted. And he then introduced me to some of his Muslim friends who were also gay and practicing, and they too were very closeted. And I remember them being like, I'm gonna marry a woman, she'll be a lesbian, and we'll just like figure out the kid thing when it comes. But, and I know that there are out queer people in Malaysia, but it is really hard. I remember one of the cases that I read about when I was in Malaysia was this lesbian couple who got caught making out at a car park in their car. Police came, pulled them out, and they received like a few lashes and I think time in prison, I'm not really sure. But when you get caught being gay in Malaysia, it's really, you can get hurt. So I put it up there. Making sense? Number 5, I put it number 5 is Indonesia. It's actually illegal. I mean, even in Malaysia and Indonesia, it is illegal to be gay there. Illegal. So when I go to a country and they say it's illegal to be gay, my mind goes, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to be a story. I don't want to be in the news. I just want to have a good time, not in a way where I want to hide. And so when I finally arrived to meet her in Indonesia, we were in we were in Canggu. I was feeling like, okay, I have to play this like tough role because I don't want to be with people hitting on her, but also I knew that because it was illegal to be gay there, we had to be in a very aware environment. There was actually a woman who blogged about how Indonesia was such a haven for the queer community because she'd been there, nothing happened to her, and she wrote it in a blog and posted it. She was like, it's cheap, it's queer friendly. Someone found it and sent it to the officials in Indonesia, and she got deported because it is illegal to be gay in Indonesia, right? Number, I don't know, I've lost count. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7, I put the Philippines. The Philippines is they don't have same-sex marriage. It's still very much church and state type of country, so they are controlled by the church. Now, even though the Philippines is like that, there's such an understanding of especially, lesbians and gay people, because there are so many in the Philippines. I read somewhere that most people in the Philippines have a family member who is LGBTQ. Now, you ask me, then why put it in the list if it's all good and dandy? Well, we should be able to get married wherever we are, right? So I feel like it's countries like that, there's still so much work to be done. But also in the Philippines, because I did not present super masculine, I don't present hyper masculine. And so I was still not feeding what they know of a lesbian couple that still holds a heteronormative picture. Whereas for another couple, they'll go, oh, these are 2 women, but this one is the man and this one is the woman, right? So I think because of that image that I was presenting in my relationship, I was having a hard time to be out, to be gay. I remember I was at these beautiful waterfalls with my ex-partner, and there was a group of family next to us. There was a lesbian there. masculine lady. And one of the guys came over and was hitting on her, and she goes, "No, that's my girlfriend." And he goes, "But you're both women." And we go, "Yes." He's like, "No, but you're both like girls." And I had on a bikini. I do wear bikinis. I had on a bikini, and I looked over and I was like, "Oh, so mentally they have constructed her gender as masculine and don't really see her as a woman." And so for those reasons, the Philippines was up there. Also, when I lived in El Nido, I think I mentioned it in past videos, there was one very young, beautiful trans woman who got murdered in the Philippines. So as much as, yes, probably cases are low, it still happens. The LGBTQ community that lives there, that experiences the Philippines on a fucking daily basis, their lives are not as pretty as the country is. Make sense? Okay. Then at number 8, I put Panama. I was in Panama for about 10 days. And I didn't really, because I lived in Costa Rica, so Panama was a quick bus ride. And I wasn't really sure about what the laws were. I was a young traveler, guys. Like now I'm like, Google, what's the law? What's allowed? What are they doing? How are the gay people living? How are they doing there? And in Panama, I remember walking into the Airbnb that we were staying in, and them looking at us, looking at the room where it was one bed, and you could just feel the shift in their discomfort and being like, "Oh, these 2 women are going to stay here." And I was like, okay. So some people feel like if nothing happens to you, then you cannot say that this country is like this. But I want to teach you a term called microaggressions. Microaggressions are those things that happen, but they are not going to be violent in nature. It's how people look at you. It's how people talk to you. It's how people treat you. Body language, tone, right? Like one of the things that happened in Indonesia about racism, this is an example of that. My partner and I, we would have to order each other's food because mine wouldn't come out. So it was shit in that way. And yes, I wasn't hurt or anything, but that was a microaggression. And so when we look at countries and say, "Oh, but you're fine," when you walk in as a gay couple, you know not to hold hands because you can see people looking at you, looking at your hands, looking at you, shaking their head, walking away, and you can feel that, right? We're empaths, we can feel shit. So Panama is there. South Korea. I put South Korea at number 9 because I keep saying I have a soft spot for Korea, and also I kind of want to check myself on that because the more I talk about South Korea and people engage with me on my YouTube as well as my TikTok, I'm finding that there is so much work that needs to be done in South Korea. There's so much work that needs to be done in South Korea. But talking about myself, I told you guys that I came out when I was in South Korea. And for me, I remember my very first weekend going to the party area, Itaewon, where it's like a line of gay clubs. And the Monday, and I went to talk to my co-teacher, and I was like, "Hey, listen, this is what I did this weekend." And he looks at me in the eyes and goes, "I'm pretty sure there were no Koreans because we don't have gay Koreans." He said that. He said, "There are no gay Koreans. So I'm pretty sure at these gay clubs you went to, it was all foreigners." And I said, "It was 80% Koreans." And it is so sad that a grown man genuinely believes that there are no gay people in his entire country. It's really sad. And when I lived there, I was part of I joined an open church. Open Doors. It was started by this pastor. I love him so much. And I remember breaking bread and talking to queer Koreans and just the pain and the agony that they experienced living in South Korea. And it was really bad. I talk about this in my book, where one of my friends was brutally attacked in South Korea while he was he's a black guy, and the partner he was with was a Korean man, and they beat them up peed on my friend, cracked the guy's ribs. He was in hospital for about a week because he was gay. And so, yes, things like that fucking happen, okay? And then the last one I put there was Mexico. Mexico, I feel like you guys who are from Mexico, forgive me, I want to come back and I want to stay longer so that I can really feel into, this is why I can speak with such depth for other countries. I put Mexico on there because I remember when we arrived in Mexico and the guy we were Airbnb with, he had a double bed and he had a hammock like just right over his bed, and he was like, well, you guys can sleep on the bed, I'll sleep on this hammock. And I was like, he couldn't see that we were a couple without even, we didn't say we were. And even, you know, booking hotel rooms, it was one of the countries where I had to go, no, we don't want a twin bed. Yes, we want a double bed. And yet we would still get twin beds. Then have to go back and say, hey, this is what we said, you know. But I do realize that I was also in very touristy areas. I was in Cancun and Tulum. And so even though there were those like glitches of people not really understanding queer relationships, I didn't experience it to the extent to which what I have been reading and the comments I've been receiving, some of the emails that I've been receiving about Mexico as well, how intense it is for those of you who actually live there. So yes, I'm being humble and saying excuse my ignorance, but I feel you and I totally understand it is hard to have an entire perspective of a country. I was there for about 3 weeks, you know, so that's my experience. And so for those reasons, I've put these as the most homophobic countries that I have ever been to. And I would love to hear what your experiences have been and what you guys want to see next. I'm thinking of doing food videos, and I'm going to talk next week about the difference between solo travel and group travel and which one you should be going for. But for now, if no one has told you yet, I love you and have a good week.